time. She's alive! Alive!
Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of
The Bride of
Alternate Ending.
Hello, ghouls and goblins, and welcome back to Bride of Alternate Ending. I am Brennan Klein, and as always, I'm accompanied by your friend and mine, Tim Brayton. Hi, Tim.
Hello, my friend.
Yeah, I think we're are we friends or are we just colleagues?
We are amiable work colleagues.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I feel like the curse words that were included in our text chain about Brainscan belie a stronger bond than mere coworkers.
Mere acquaintanceship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and I'll tell you what, some strong curse words are going to get used on this podcast. So lock up the children, because you're going to hear the descriptions of acts that you do not want to hear described as I talk about this movie.
Yes, it is. Well, we are. My God. Okay.
It's just a real stinky movie. Brainscan. It's just a real stinker.
Yep, it's our second entry of Carl Beasley's Patreon topic pick of Edward Furlong month. We are talking about 1994's Brainscan, directed by John Flynn, the uncredited script supervisor on West Side Story, apparently.
All right. Apparently John Flynn had like a respectable career. Not a great top end career. I haven't actually seen any of his stuff, but like he had a career that would have let you think that this is a man who knows what he's doing. He's not great at it, but he's good at it.
Well, we'll see. I'd have to have a more statistically significant glimpse into his filmography because
I mean, again, I've only seen Brainscan, and Brainscan does not reflect what I just said.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is your first time watching Brainscan, right?
It is my first time watching Brainscan and my last.
Yes, me too. This movie came out 4 months before I was born, so I've never lived in a world without Brainscan, and that is a really depressing thought. But yeah, so we're in April '94. Edward Furlong is 3 years removed from T2, 2 years removed from Pet Sematary 2, about -3 minutes removed from the end of his kind of large branch of his career.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing about Edward Furlong is he existed. His career is a function of Terminator 2. I think the fact that he's been cast in anything is that people still have that, like, Terminator 2 aura they want to get. I mean, he's still working. He's been, well, he was working at least through 2017, let's say.
Yeah.
But he's around. He hasn't, like, retired or anything, but he's never made a film you've heard of since the 90s. I guess that's not quite true. He was in nope, that's a 90s film, so never mind. What I said is true.
Yeah, and he is credited in Terminator Dark Fate, but as a model for John Connor and not actually someone who was invited to be around.
Yes. Yes, that is correct. And I think he might have actually done the mocap for his character's 30-second appearance in the film. I'm not sure.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't recall that scene from Terminator Dark Fate. I thought that movie was fine, but it is flown out of my brain.
It's a fine scene, and that is the worst scene in it. A fine film, rather, and that is the worst scene in it.
Great. Love it.
So good.
Must have been the first thing I ejected, because I remember very little, other than Mackenzie Davis just kind of generally being awesome. But we're not... See, okay, so we keep trying to not talk about Brainscan is the thing.
That's the thing.
But I think we should introduce our Brainscan episode properly with this quote from director John Flynn about Edward Furlong. He says, Eddie Furlong was a 15-year-old kid who couldn't act. You had to slap him awake every morning. I don't want to get into knocking people, but I was not a big Eddie Furlong fan.
You know. That sounds... I don't condone... I want to make that clear. I don't condone slapping teenagers. But in the case of Edward Furlong, I think I would make an exception.
Yeah, okay, well, the thing is, slapping teenagers, no. You'll get arrested, probably. It's not a good look. But, like, most of them are kind of asking for it.
That's fair, and
Including me as a teen. Like, I'm not exempt.
I was a wonderful teenager. I was extraordinarily well behaved and charming, but Edward Furlong was not. And I will say this: I was scouring my brain, as it were. I wanted to have something kind to say about this film. I wanted to find the one thing that I could say. This is the thing about the film that will register as some level as a compliment. Furlong is better here, I think, than in either T2 or Pet Sematary 2.
Yeah, I would say so. He's definitely less shrill. End of sentence.
Yes. I will frame it this way. I believe his performance made Pet Sematary 2 worse than it had to be, and I don't believe that's true of his performance here.
Yes, but Pet Sematary 2 also had things that were at least at a median level of quality, and Brainscan...
I am not disputing that. That is where the compliment train comes to a stop. It has hit the station and derailed.
Yeah, it's more of a... Like, I think maybe... Yeah, if Edward Furlong is, like, constantly at a 3, he was dragging down the average of Pet Sematary 2. But Brainscan is operating at a 1.5 for most of the time. Oh, boy. Okay, so the plot of Brainscan, insofar as...
It's got a very clear-cut plot. I would not say that I have any issue following the plot of this film.
No. I shall not be rude about the plot, except for the fact that it is bad. It is not.
It is uninteresting. It is morally defective. It is boring. But it is not incomprehensible.
Yeah, it is clearly structured and laid out.
Yep.
So we do have young Michael, played by Edward Furlong. He is a teenager who lives in some sort of hacker's attic.
It is... So we learn fairly quickly, or can surmise fairly quickly, his mother died in a car accident.
Oh, we learned because they keep cutting back to it in really painfully extended sequences.
Yes. And this appears to have caused him to become some sort of insulated loner. If his father's situation is explained, I missed it.
His father is around, but he's on a business trip and he has been delayed by more days. So he's just not present.
Okay, because I was like, I don't get where Furlong lives. But if he lives in his father's home, then that makes more sense. But yes, he does live in a very well tricked out hacker attic, which is very... It's the early to mid 90s, and the internet is here, but no one really knows what to do with it. No one really has access to it yet. It hasn't become something in our houses quite yet. That's still a few years in the future. So it's this very, like, we don't know what technology is vision of 90s technology. To me, at least, typified by Michael's phone, which is a computer program that is an animated Igor that you tell it what phone number you want to dial, and they dial it, and it becomes a kind of a video phone.
Yeah, well, it plays like a slideshow of images of the person that you're talking to.
Right.
And
this wasn't something we did in 1994. I just want to confirm that for you, because as you said, you were not alive when this movie came out. This was not a form of technology that I ever witnessed. This was not a form of technology that I ever encountered anyone daydreaming about. So...
Yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to imagine someone who desperately wanted things to be this way. Like, it is kind of like a voice-activated Surrey thing, but it's also just, it's Igor. Like, he's like, Igor, dial Brainscan or whatever, and he's like, yes, master. And then you have to watch him painstakingly, like, push each number on the video screen.
Because it's not just like if you tell your phone, call Brennan, and it goes bring, and then you pick up. It's like you're dialing the phone, but because you don't have a physical phone, you just have a computer. You just you still dial the phone number by number, and you have to like find the number. It's all very fucking confusing.
Yeah.
It just bothered me.
Yeah, it's very confusing, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, so he's this kind of like tech genius nerd guy who invented this, and that's what I assumed at first, but the more I watched the movie, the more I was like, no, I think this is just a thing that he bought somehow in this alternate universe 1994.
Something like that, because he doesn't seem to be a good hacker.
No, he doesn't hack any, he doesn't seem
He
to...
doesn't hack.
He doesn't have tech skills, he just owns tech things.
Right.
It's very, very bizarre. I mean, look, I do love the 80s and 90s vision of what technology was going to be. Like, the 1981 You Wouldn't Download the Devil movie, Evil Speak, where Clint Howard uses a computer in a military complex to summon Satan and murder a bunch of people.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of thing is appealing to me, and that element... That ridiculous element kind of fell under like a camp umbrella for me, even in this movie, where I was like, this is so silly that I'm kind of enjoying just thinking about the implications of what this is and where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
However, that quickly stops with the interjection of some real-life technology, a CD-ROM.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is certainly from a movie from when we didn't know what CD-ROMs did quite yet, but we knew they existed and we knew they were fancy.
Yes. So... he gets a CD-ROM of a brand new horror game called Brainscan because he and his friend Kyle, Jamie Marsh, are, sick, twisted teen freaks who want the next cheap thrill.
They are members of a horror film club at school that gets banned.
Yeah, because they watched the movie with the very real title, Death, Death, Death.
I am not going to dispute that could be the name of a title of a film.
I mean, we do have Bodies, Bodies, Bodies coming out in August, but it's just, I don't know. I get particularly annoyed when fake horror film titles in movies are like so syntactically aggressive. Because it's like you've seen what a movie is called before, right?
Right.
Like I just watched the movie Blood Theater, which is very bad. Don't recommend it. But at least their movies, like, while being really ridiculous, were at least like the clown horrors of Saluton 6 or whatever. Like that's a movie that could exist, even though it's over the top. Death That Death, I didn't buy it.
That's fair.
But
yeah. So he orders. So in the pages of Fangoria, which is a horror magazine for horror aficionados, which already just raises questions of like, did Fangoria sign off on this? Because it's basically the film is suggesting that Fangoria is like trying to entrap and murder people. But
yeah, well,
setting that aside,
Fangoria was kind of horny to be included in any horror genre film.
That's fair.
And in the 90s,
true.
This is what you get.
I guess. But so in the pages of Fangoria, they see the advertisement for this new CD-ROM game called Brainscan. So Michael calls, and the phone call just goes really weird, and he doesn't like it, so he tries to hang up, but they send him a CD-ROM anyway without him even having told them his address.
Yeah, and also he gets
because internet.
He gets like alien abducted, like brainwashed while on the phone with these people too.
Yes.
So I guess that's how they extracted his address. Unclear on what exactly that part did.
Just got him primed.
Yeah.
Got him ready to go.
Got him primed. And yeah, so he gets the CD-ROM, and it's a game called Brainscan. And it basically is like, we're going to put you in the POV of a killer. And it's basically a virtual reality game where for somehow a CD-ROM game has harnessed the power of his computer to scan his brain. And
it has done this.
It has done this. What he thinks is a POV game about murdering this random old dude turns out to be horribly real when he discovers that an old man in his neighborhood was murdered in the same way.
Exactly.
And
then what happens? Oh me, oh my. What happens next?
I want you to describe how you felt in your body in this scene that follows.
So, my body felt really bad. My body didn't cringe exactly. It just sort of... How to describe it? I both tightened up with just anxiety and frustration, but I also slumped. So it's sort of like I rolled into a ball and then tipped forward.
Okay, I was actually going to describe it similarly, but more like, rolling inward from the toes up, kind of like the genie's like shoes, the way that they curl and tassel, just like roll all the way up and do like a fruit roll-up kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way of... So we're on the same page. It's just like you feel both exhausted, but also really, really wound up.
Yes, exactly.
In a weird way.
So yes, the Trickster emerges from the game. The Trickster is a figure who wants to be on the Mount Rushmore with Beetlejuice and Freddy Krueger and Wishmaster, and I will give him this. His look, while not particularly menacing, is interesting.
It is a unique look that very clearly ties into what square people in 1994 thought was scary.
Yes, it's this very punk, like partially shaved, red-dyed, hair sticking straight up pompadour thing, and he's got kind of a monstrous face and also like piercings.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an image, and I like that. It is. They did anything with him.
It is a vision that I do not appreciate, but it is a vision.
Yes, exactly. It's like they drew a picture of a punk on a piece of paper, and that piece of paper is named T. Ryder Smith.
T. Ryder Smith, who since we are going to have only negative things to say about, I suspect maybe you're going to have something nice to say. I sure as hell not. But I wanna start by nodding in the direction of T. Ryder Smith as not much of a movie actor, but he is a apparently very prolific and well-regarded New York stage actor. He has been nominated for a Drama Desk Award. He's been nominated for Drama Desk as a member of an ensemble cast. He's been nominated for an Obie. So he is a avant-garde theater actor who matters, at least somewhat, apparently. And I think we should acknowledge that before talking about how what he did in this movie makes me believe that he should be tied to a tree and flogged with willow branches until he is dead.
Yes. And also, on his IMDb, apparently he has a very robust career in video game voice acting, which is actually the exact last place I would want him.
I mean, yes, and I have to assume that's at least partially people being like, oh, cool, he voiced a video game in that 1994 cult movie that I like because I saw it when I was like 12 years old or something like that.
Mm-hmm. This is very much if you saw it when you were 12, you probably liked it because it felt so fucking hardcore.
Yes.
And that's great if that's the case. I'm so happy for you. You have found a modicum of joy in this film that I did not have access to, and I am incredibly envious.
I am not envious. I have a feeling that it's a mixture of pity and contempt for you, if you are one of those people.
Okay, I mean, a little bit of that, but it's just, I wish I had enjoyed myself in any way watching this movie.
I do agree. If I had gotten joy out of this film, or any measure of joy or pleasure, of excitement, I would have felt better about it. So yes, point taken. But also, so T. Ryder Smith's performance is... It's very sullen. It's very, like, sort of, like, grumbly. Like, you think of Freddy Krueger, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, will you be thinking of Freddy Krueger, because this film is indecently anxious to make sure that you are. Robert Englund's performance has this sort of, like, menacing growl, but it's, like, this very sort of peppy and upbeat and, like, showy performance, and he's really there to, like, sock it to us, but in this way that's kind of based in this animal, like, savagery. I think what's going on here is that T. Ryder Smith has seen Englund's sort of like the low purr that Englund does before he actually like launches into Freddy type killing, and has tried to replicate it, but it just comes off like he's kind of soft-spoken and bored.
Yes. And this especially comes to the fore when you're not looking at him, when he's voicing the digital character on the screen.
Yes.
It comes out, it's this really rushed, but like quiet delivery that just feels like a gentle river flowing of exposition. It's very perfunctory in a way that this character desperately does not need.
Again, it feels like you're watching like post-apocalyptic themed Batman villain here, and so you're expecting like this sort of like laughing, hopping, jumping up and down, like mad bipolar type thing, and you just get this kind of like very like librarian-esque, hushed, this is what we're going to talk about right now sort of thing. And it's like, what is happening? Why is there this weird disconnect between your like makeup covered face and what you're doing vocally?
Yeah, it's so subdued, because he should, though, especially the way he's modeled, he should sound like Gene Simmons leading a concert, like shrieking and
exactly.
And it's just it's
especially given, so the film, as you said, this is a hardcore film. It goes all in on this very like ugly grunge metal score. I know Primus shows up because there's a particular scene. It's actually maybe even the character's first scene, which we'll talk about here in a moment, I'm sure. But I wanted to see what song was playing during that scene, and it was a Primus song. So it has this like music that is designed to piss off your mom soundtrack in '94. Not a thoughtfully curated one at all. And this is a weird aside. Earlier this week, I watched the Jet Li picture, which has a wall-to-wall nu metal score, and it's very aggressive and very noisy. And nu metal's not my thing. But it feels like it's creating an aesthetic blanket. Like, it's like, here's what the film sonically is. It is this thing. And contrasting that with Brainscan, where it's just like, it's grabbing a bunch of songs that are all, like, hard, but it's not, it doesn't believe in them. This is a film that was trying to entice an audience that likes this kind of music, I think, but it is not a movie that is made by people who understand or care about this music at all, so it just ends up feeling like this kind of clusterfuck of noise.
Yes, very much. Like, I would say that the score does not actively work against the movie in the way that it did in Pet Sematary 2. I mean, the soundtrack. But it's just because it's incoherent rather than, like, actively being a brick in the pillowcase of the movie.
Yes. No, it is a very, very incoherent soundtrack. But, I mean, it does speak to this kind of, like, again, as you said, sort of Gene Simmons-esque, like, there should be, like, this kind of raging, screeching menace that is simply not there.
Yeah, he either needs to, like, be that or have the kind of surety and quiet menace of, like, I forget the name, but the demon in Death Note, the kind of, like, just pure confidence in his will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not happening.
Right.
And so he is doing these things that would work better with a better performance, like putting on a Primus song and dancing and eating all of Edward Furlong's snacks.
Oh, the dance. So I texted you.
Yep.
As you know, Brennan. But I'm telling this to our good listeners. The dance, he dances. It's not even like a particularly... It is a garish dance. You know what it reminded me of?
What?
You remember the 2010 Alice in Wonderland? Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, in 2010, yeah.
Do you remember when they have beat the Jabberwocky and to celebrate, Johnny Depp turns into a CGI effect and dances the Futterwacken?
Only vaguely, and I'm very, very miserable that you have put this back into my brain.
I look up the video of the Futterwacken somewhat often because I enjoy using it as a thing to make people feel bad about by making them look at it, because this is how I function in the world. Mm-hmm. So I see the Futterwacken at least, I'd say, once a year. And it felt like that. But done actually and not with a visual effect.
Yeah, which, I mean, kudos to them, I guess. It is just basically everything about the Trickster is designed to... He is kind of an energy vampire in that he is actively trying to steal your soul through the movie screen as he's performing his character.
He for sure is.
It is
a bummer.
It is an unalloyed, heinous performance of a character that should have just been a pale mimic of Freddy Krueger. It should have been, Warwick Davis as Leprechaun, he's actually giving that everything he has. But it should have been like, Andrew Divoff as Wishmaster. It should have been fucking Larry Drake as Dr. Giggles. It should have been something stupid in early 90s, but somebody trying to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like Corbin Burnson as the dentist. He's nothing. Like, he is such a black hole in the middle of this, like, movie that is not well served by lacking anything because it doesn't have anything to offer.
The movie is clearly built around having a Freddy Krueger in it, is the thing. Like, that is the movie's pretty much only strategy, is what if instead of working through dreams, Freddy Krueger worked through video games, which are a medium we, the screenwriters, do not understand at all.
Oh, no.
That's the movie.
Not one bit. Yeah, and that is the movie, because you do witness in what I would call an inconsistent POV shot, the old man being murdered in the first disc of 4. But all of the subsequent murders are completely off screen, and it's supposed to be Edward Furlong doesn't remember what he's done and isn't sure what's going on. But everything is shuttled off screen in favor of him spending time with Trickster and talking about what the fuck is going on.
Exactly. And it's very fucking boring. Because, like, we're here to see a horror movie. We're not here to learn about how the screenwriters are paranoid that CD-ROMs are going to corrupt the youth. And yet.
Yeah, that's it. And so and the plot continues, like, as expected from there. It's like he has to dodge Detective Hayden, who's Frank Langella, also
who feels like when you have been crawling through a hot urban hellscape of summer heat, and you finally find, like, a place that you can buy a bottle of water, and Frank Langella turns to you with a big smile and hands you that bottle of water, is how I felt about him being in this movie. It was just like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, I mean, that bottle of water...
You're a stabilizing presence.
That bottle of water is still, like, off-brand and tastes a little funny, but it's something.
But it's something. It's cold. It's cold on my tongue.
Yes, it is. Yeah, thank you, Frank Langella, for your service. And also, so his friend Kyle gets killed. We don't really interact with that as much as... Well, whatever. Anything that makes this movie shorter.
It's meant to be, like, a major event that, like, changes his emotional reaction to what's going on around him, but it plays as just another mysterious murder for which he's fairly or unfairly blamed.
Yeah. And eventually, so the girl across the street who he's been spying on with a video camera, as you do,
recording her taking her shirt off. It's very, very horrible. Makes us feel really, really lousy about our protagonist right at the start. At least it made me feel really lousy.
Oh yeah, no, it's really, really uncomfortable. This is a thing that a lot of, like, teen movies were about in this era, but the way that it explicitly builds in that character as a genuine potential romantic interest is just really unsettling.
It's unsettling there. It's unsettling later on. There's a fantasy sequence where these two characters kiss and start making out. And Furlong is 15 at the time of shooting, and the actress, because she's topless at one point, can't be minor, so she's, like, in her 20s. And it's like, am I literally watching a crime?
Oh, yeah.
Like, being filmed.
Oh, yeah, that's upsetting. Okay. And, yeah, so this character is Kimberly. She's played by Amy Hargreaves, who's on Homeland and 13 Reasons Why and other shows I don't watch. And maybe this was an attempt to age her down, but the makeup and hairstyling department did her so dirty, Tim.
They did, although to be fair, people in the 90s had hair that looked like that. Hair was bad in the 90s.
That is true. Actually, okay, quick digression. I have been binging 90210 and Melrose Place. And there is a gay character named Matt, played by Doug Savant on Melrose Place, and he is constantly wearing these oversized brown suits that are 8 sizes too large. And it's just...
Yeah, we were all in our post Stop Making Sense phase back then. It was all good.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand, but I feel so bad for anyone who had sex with men in the 90s and had to find their body inside that fabric. It just seems like a really upsetting time to be sexually active. And then with this kind of hair on everyone, it's just... I don't know how any babies were born in the 90s. But yeah, so Amy Hargreaves, it's what's on the inside that counts. And additionally, Amy Hargreaves is a very beautiful woman. But this movie is undermining her in really insidious ways that make it not make sense.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is like, I mean, you're saying she's a very beautiful woman. I don't know her outside of this film, so I will defer to you on that, because she is being made to look dowdy and very flat-faced and just not like someone you would lust after.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you are an indiscriminate teenage boy who just wants to beat off to the neighbor. Period.
Yeah, but that also, I don't know what I'm saying about this. I'm really not trying to be Luxus. Like, good for him for looking past that hair. But yeah, so it just adds this dimension to this really grotesque stalker relationship. And at one point, Trickster does accurately call out Edward Furlong, because he's like, you think you're in love with this girl, but it could be any girl outside any window. It's just the fact that she's there.
Yeah, exactly. Which felt like a weird note for the movie to strike, to like give Trickster a good point at that point in the plot, but okay.
Yeah, well, the movie has pretty much only been striking dud notes since about minute 2.
That is fair.
But yeah, so anyway, there's the idea of like, she knows that you murdered this person, so the video game's gonna make you kill her, and then he resists, and Trickster turns into a CGI cartoon and swallows Edward Furlong, who goes flying through these digital tunnels like he's Jimmy Neutron having a brain blast.
The intrusion of CGI in the form of what you just said, I was not ready for it. This is the point where the movie just started sliding off my eyeballs.
Yeah, it is. When it's not being crushingly boring, it is viscerally upsetting to witness, and this is one of those sequences.
It is so upsetting, and like the morph effect they do on Furlong's head to make it like mushy so Trickster can eat it. It's just like, it's so ugly and so bad, and so like they had like Avid Media Composer, like they had the first generation of offline editing or online editing, and it's just like, it's so ineptly done, and it's so ugly, and it hurt me to watch it. I felt bad.
Yeah, and this is the cherry on top of a hour and 40-minute movie that is nothing but punishing.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's...
No. That's the whipped cream. The cherry is yet to come.
Yeah, okay. Tell us about the cherry, Tim.
The cherry is that literally none of this movie happened. This was Brainscan. This was the video game making this guy think that he was being haunted by this insane, horrible punk goblin ghost clown and was murdering people and couldn't figure out how to kill the goblin punk ghost clown. That was the game. That was the experience. The game, like, brain scanned him and then just made all of this happen. It was all a dream.
Yeah. And then he gives the game to his teacher that he hates, which is...
Exactly.
Just mean. But, you know,
yes.
We have no reason to... Oh! Oh, and there's the deeply upsetting thing where Edward Furlong then goes to the party that's being thrown by the girl across the street and asks her to go out with him, and she basically says no, and he gives her murder eyes, so she says maybe, and then we're supposed to think that that's a very sweet thing.
Right? It was weird. Because it was like, over the course of a conversation, she goes from no to, well, it's just confusing. I don't know. It was horrible. It was a really, given the film's like portrayal of healthy teen sexuality is already really unpleasant, and it just becomes straight up rotten in that last scene.
Yeah, it's rotten to the core. But yeah, that ending. Would you be surprised? I was surprised, actually, if I told you that an uncredited script doctor, Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Brainscan, he's an uncredited script doctor on The Game, 1997.
You don't say.
I do. It is true, and it makes a lot of sense.
I feel like that is a name that I have heard in other contexts as well. Like, I feel he's a writer of things.
That seems likely. Let me see what else he's got. Oh,
he wrote Sleepy Hollow.
He did, and Seven.
And The Wolfman.
Yeah, and 8mm.
Oh, and the recent direct-to-Netflix Windfall.
Yeah, okay. These are things that I've heard of.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so it's such a cheesy cop-out, but at the same time...
Well, the thing is...
I don't know.
The thing is, this is the only way this movie could have ended.
It is. That's the thing. It feels inevitable.
Which is why it is such a slog, too, because you're like, okay, I know where we're going. Please just pick me up and run me there. Take me in an ambulance to the end of this movie. I don't want to be here.
Exactly.
I was actually expecting there to be like a final twist that it's like, oh no, this was part of the game too. But that didn't.
Well, there is the moment where doesn't Trickster appear and give him a wink in the real world?
Yes, but
do we understand that to be that he's had a psychotic break and will now see Trickster for the rest of his life?
Potentially, or it's the brain scan wearing off. He's passing on the Ringu curse to a new person.
That's also a possibility.
Yeah, I had viscerally... I was ready to vomit this movie figuratively out of my system at this point, that I didn't spend too much time thinking about it.
I was ready to vomit this movie literally out of my system.
Yeah, it is a pathogen. It gets inside you and turns your insides against you. It is rotten.
It's so unlikable. It's so unpleasant to watch. So 90s horror cinema is just very bad. I think 1990 through 1994, maybe even 1995, is the worst block of time. Yeah, we have to count at least the start of 1995 because we have to get Halloween 6 in there.
Whew, yeah.
So this is like the absolute nadir of horror cinema in the English language world.
Yes.
English speaking world.
And obviously there are exceptions. You got your Silences of the Lambs, you got your Candymans, you got your Tales from the Crypt Demon Knights, but that's like one a year.
Exactly. Like, the number of good ones is so low. And this is not the worst 90s horror film I've ever seen, but it is so just mired in the 90s of it all in a way that is really not a cool time capsule, but just like all the things that were worst about that decade's pop culture rather than all the things that were most typical about that decade's pop culture, yeah. I guess you could say. And like, I guess you could say, oh, well, this is like a weird-ass X-Files knockoff. That's sort of a time capsule-y thing, but it's still like, it's all the reasons why good riddance this era is done and dead and gone. And so that's a huge just drain on the movie, and it's so incredibly stupid, and the Trickster is just such an unqualified failure of a horror movie villain.
Yeah, he's not only deeply uncompelling, he's an active detriment to every moment he's in, and he's in so many moments.
He's in such a huge amount of the movie, and he is invariably the worst thing on screen. when he is on screen.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, again, just visualize Freddy Krueger going wrong. I mean, like, that's what you've got here. It's like a worst-case scenario Nightmare on Elm Street sequel.
Yeah,
That is worse than any Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. Even, well, yeah, I'd say it's worse than the terrible remake, even. Like, it is...
I think I would agree.
There is a smaller margin there. But yeah, they just put all of their eggs in the Trickster basket. They're like, we want to get into the T. Ryder Smith business. And that was just such a colossal misfire.
Yep. And it's based on this just weird reactionary panic about video gaming that by 1994, it's one thing to like make, you know, Mazes and Monsters in 1983 because what's Dungeons and Dragons is scary, but by 1994 video games aren't new. We're already on like Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo by then, and we're starting to look to what comes after that. Why are people suddenly panicking about, like, fucking... I mean, Myst was out by this point. Like, Myst is, I think, already out by 94. So it's not like this is novel technology, but they're still treating it as though it's some sort of, like, cryptic unknown.
Yeah, it just top to bottom, every decision in this movie is bad. I would say the one moment I, like... kind of, not unequivocally, but like to some degree enjoyed was, I would say, an accident. It is a moment where as we have already said, the incoherent soundtrack lines up with the killing of the old man in the beginning to create this kind of Suspiria-esque cacophony. And I thought that was, it served the murder sequence quite well.
The killing of the old man is certainly the strongest scene. For one thing, it is the only genuine, like, murder scene we get in this horror movie.
Jesus Christ, I can't believe that.
It's much more interesting to see Furlong flop sweat as he's trying to lie to Frank Langella, apparently.
And, we need to talk about Edward Furlong. It is Edward Furlong month, you know, the yearly celebration of the works and art of Edward Furlong. What does he do in this movie? He hides under some bushes multiple times. He talks to a dog. And then there's a scene where he's just playing video games with he chugs a glass of milk after he murders an old man, and then like
he just gets it all over his face. He's just like fucking dousing his face in milk. It is the grossest thing.
Yeah, it's like basically the end of that dance in Flashdance. And there's a part where he's leaning back and you can track this droplet of milk trailing down his neck, and it is really upsetting. It's like,
it made me feel, again, like you're talking about figurative vomiting. I felt like actually slightly ill at this movie.
Yeah, it's just doing so much wrong and so little in general.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. Okay, sorry.
But yeah, so Furlong's performance. Again, I think this is a step up for him. He has clearly rounded puberty at this point. His voice is settled in, so we don't get those weird, like, squeaks and beeps that you get every now and then in Terminator 2. He's just, in general, less than he was in Pet Sematary 2.
Yeah, and he's generally... holding down the fort, but there's just nothing going on in the script for him to do.
Right. And that's probably for the best, because I think we have seen that when he is given things to do, he cannot necessarily do them. But he is not... he's not making the film worse, which is, again, a step in the right direction. But I do wonder if a powerfully charismatic figure, like if they'd made this film 10 years later and given Haley Joel Osment that role, does that work? Or does it just drag a good actor down to its level, do you think?
I mean, you would have to recast T. Ryder Smith. I don't think anyone can play off of that version of the Trickster.
That's probably fair. But like, I guess I'm saying, if we feel a sort of baseline of sympathy for Michael that I did not feel because Furlong just does not generate sympathetic feelings in me. do we at least get something out of it if we feel sorry for him ever at all?
Let me think. I mean, well, see, that's the thing, because the character as written is still a creepy attic stalker man. I think that maybe if this was like mid-'80s, like Friday the 13th, the final chapter, Corey Feldman, we might be getting somewhere.
Okay.
Because he was kind of a little creep too in that movie, but more sympathetic.
Yeah, so you're saying more lean into the creepiness than try to redeem the character, which I think would also be a strategy. But again, you need an actor who's like bringing something, and Furlong is not bringing anything. He's just a sort of, he's like the plate upon which the film is served, not the film itself.
Okay, do you have any final thoughts on this whole situation?
I hated it. Hated it so bad. It's a big old turd.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's nothing to like about it. I know I was a half star kinder to it on Letterboxd than you were, but that's just because, I mean, it truly is the camera didn't fall over. I've been watching.
Yeah. No, I have a friend who always gives every anime film that we see together more stars than I do on Letterboxd because he just likes anime too much to give it low ratings, and I feel like that's where you are with horror to a certain extent.
Yeah, probably, but also, I have been wading through this mire of mid-'80s direct-to-video slasher films.
Okay, well, next to direct-to-video, I can see where this would look competent, yeah.
Yeah, it is a budgeted theatrical feature. You can see the things that are happening on screen, even if you don't want to, but it has a... Basically, for a movie at this level, unless it's doing something even more egregious than Brainscan, I think 3 out of 10 is kind of my baseline, like, low score.
Gotcha.
Just because
okay.
I need a room for, Death Nurse 2.
No, I get that. Excuse me. I've actually of late been trying to curve my grades a little bit more so that I take account of... Well, this film could not afford to have a tripod. That is why the camera keeps falling over. This film could afford to have a tripod, so I will grade it more harshly for the non-tripod falling over things it has, basically.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of where I've been of late.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I curve things like that, too. Like, there are movies that are, ineptly made, but if they're telling a good story and have something fun about them, I'll rate them a little higher.
I'm more referring to in the other direction, but yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, got it.
that I'm going to hold this film to a slightly higher standard because it can afford CGI. It can afford name actors. So I'm willing to be a little harder on it than I would be hard on an equally bad direct-to-video film.
Oh wait, no. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Like there's a direct-to-video movie called American Gothic where like. In the first 3 minutes, you can see the boom mic, but the story is so compelling and weird that I really like that movie. So I'm willing to forgive it for those technical flaws.
Mm-hmm. Boom mic is one that I have a really hard time overlooking, to be honest.
Oh, no, that's hard. It's only one shot, thankfully.
Okay.
Unlike, holy shit, not to keep bringing this up, but, well, welcome to my life. This is what I've been talking about for the last month. But in Beverly Hills 90210, you can see that boom at least 3 shots per episode. It is egregious.
That's crazy. I've never seen this show. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have no idea how this show made it to the air. But anyway, so yeah, there is that. But there are also the movies that are poorly made and also have nothing to offer. Like, there's a movie called Psycho Santa where someone has been stabbed in the leg and you see them crawling towards the phone, and that's a 17-minute shot. That is where my 1 and 2s out of 10s live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotta save it for the good stuff.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, a film like Brainscan to me feels like it could be, honestly, even a 1. Like, I could have gone a half star on this one, just because it is near the bottom of what a film with this much budget could hopefully achieve, I think.
Yes, no, that is a great point.
Like it is constantly in focus. There are no like conspicuous moments of underlighting. So technically it is a competent film, and I do have a hard time going to the very bottom of the rating scale for technically competent films, because there are films that are not technically competent.
Yes, and even films at this budget level, at this level of promotion. So
I will always go back to the Taraji Henson vehicle.
I was literally just gonna say Proud Mary.
But like that being said, everything about Brainscan made me unhappy.
Yes, it is.
I did not like watching this film. I felt bad about my life choices watching this film.
Yeah, we might be splitting hairs, but those hairs are still, on the bottom of a dead pig. It's just
Exactly.
unpleasant to deal with. I will say, one thing to wrap it up. This is our. This movie had effects by Steve Johnson. He has worked on 4 previous Bride of Alternate Ending movies. He worked on War of the Worlds with Steven Spielberg, Videodrome, Leviathan, and Pet Sematary 2.
All right.
This is his reunion with Edward Furlong.
I'm guessing that Furlong pulled him along with. See if he did other Furlong movies.
A rising tide lifts all ships. And then the tsunami came. Anyway, that is fucking that on Brainscan, and we can close the fairy tale book on Edward Furlong month. Thank fuck.
So I want to end Edward Furlong month in general with one last question for you. Do you think we are on the cusp of the Furlong Renaissance, or the Furlongaissance, or however we want to call it?
I mean, what evidence would I have that this could possibly happen?
None whatsoever.
I don't know. I wouldn't say so. I don't think anyone is thinking about him. I think the Terminator franchise has been eclipsed by a series of sequels that nobody cares about or spends money to see. Mm-hmm. People still have a lot of love for the first 2 Terminator movies, but they have fallen on the cultural wayside, I would say. I don't think Edward Furlong's coming back anytime soon.
I would agree.
Anyway.
Good riddance.
Yeah, good riddance. We're moving on to greener pastures next month. We're going to be doing horror comedies as recommended by our Oscar-level patron, Jack. So thank you, Jack, for being nice.
Yeah, horror comedies are not something that ever goes wrong. I feel very good about that.
Well, we at least have a broader range of options.
Yes, that's true.
We have more than 5 horror comedies. But yeah, so if you're on the Patreon at any level, keep an eye out for the poll, and you can vote for what movie we're covering first in whatever month's coming up, June. And yeah, thank you so much for listening us, just lament and vent our spleens about Brainscan.
And quite a lot of spleen there was to vent as well.
Anyway, bye everyone.
She ate me.